Hey, Red. So now that you're here,
Hey, man.
why don't you tell us a bit about pulse trends and load and everything you got working on? You're working on.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, the ultimate reason of some of the things that I'm working on is what a lot of time spent with Richard. And he was utilizing a lot of this infrastructure that I was talking about. And he was actually able to prove that what we were talking about is absolutely achievable. Using these arbitrage bots, utilizing fat liquidity, but pairing it thin liquidity across other chains and with other tokens that are going to pump. Sorry, guys. And then as these things pump, we pump with it. So not only like SKOL is so liquid, but it can pump as if it's illiquid because of these mechanics that we've found. Um, the PRC20 trend. Hold on. Okay, so the PRC trend Twitter handle has gained around 1,000 followers over a pretty quick period of time. I got to turn that off. And so I know for a fact it's going to be growing. We've had 5,000 listeners, 6,000 listeners, plus we're on YouTube with 4,000 and 5,000 listeners, couple thousand. And there's people that sell our content and get 3, 4, 5,000 views on YouTube. So I'm actually lining up big influencers like Corey Costa and all these guys to be speaking about SKOL. Speaking about, SKOL is my biggest partner, right? And the things that we've uncovered have only became true over time. We're talking from Wintermute paying for and distributing the Hong Kong ETF, from the front running of what SDI was doing and the collection of SDI and what SDI brings to the whole new table for DAI and why we see value in pdai and PulseChain, and ultimately where I'll be launching another 3 or 4 core assets inside that, but it's all going to be paired to SKOL. We also have a buddy in here that's launched a token that's paired to like 150 different PRC copies, and we'll be able to pair and burn liquidity with him, and we're forever connected to this insane liquidity map. And then by doing so, we're spreading our risk, but we're spreading our liquidity thinner. So when these things pump, we pump harder. And then with my home base being on which I hate Solana, but you know what? That's where the degens were, so that's where I went. So over time, we're seeing the arbitrage, we're seeing the vote, we're seeing the free volume, and then being able to attach and then having SKOL as its home base, right? That has trading taxes on it. We're able to utilize that structure. So on PulseChain, I'm going to eventually launch tokens that are like attached to SKOL. So you'll have to take a pairing of SKOL and load, right? Which you could bridge as well. And you can burn that. And then you burn that and you get SCOD or Optimus load, whatever we want to call it, right? Viking load. And then like at that point, it becomes a store of value. So, I mean, this is a big overarching theme of what we're trying to do. But I can tell you most influencers on Solana right now thinking that they can push $1 billion protocol on Solana off of pump.fun is almost impossible. Let me tell you why. Because at all-time highs of $1 billion, you need $100 million of economic energy, right? On a pump.fun ratio. And you might even need more. There's a reason why these tokens get to 25 mil. They got 2-3 mil in liquidity. So at that point, if you need it to double and 4x in price, you have to double the liquidity. Let me explain. So when you launch a token with $100 in liquidity and the price is $1, you double the liquidity to $400. At that point, the token's value is $4. Now, if you go to 400 and you double it again to $800, that $4 is now $16 in value, right? It works in square roots. So every time you double the liquidity pool, you 4x the token's value. Now, this is a unique infrastructure that's only built into DeFi because every market caps and liquidity aren't equal. But what we've uncovered is the way to mint stable value equal to a market cap and have it hidden so the token still pumps illiquid. It's insane. I'll go into detail, over time. But from what I understand, say Richard Hart owns, which he does, 90% of Hex, right? Its all-time high was 300 billion in market cap. If he owns 90%, let's just say he took 50 billion Hex and paired it with eDai, right? At the time of its all-time high, that token would have minted 25 billion DAI on the other end of that liquidity pool, right? It's huge. So like these are stablecoin minting machines is what they are, but it topped out. It got so liquid, even though it's an illiquid asset, right? Just because the way it's designed and the function of illiquidity and being able to hide volume and value off chain, just like the Wise token has a $13 million market cap, but a $250 million liquidity. It's backwards, right? Hex had a $300 billion liquidity and less than $100 billion in its market cap, right? So once people start understanding the value proposition of being able to leverage an asset and leverage assets that market caps aren't equal to their liquidity, what is going to happen is a stabilization across the entire market, right? Your market cap will equal your liquidity because of these types of mechanics of being able to actually incorporate them, understand them, and then provide knowledge. Unfortunately, people aren't going to grasp it. Unfortunately, people are going to miss the boat. They're going to continue to sell. They're going to continue to get wrecked. The market's going to continue to go down for another 6 months, probably. But it likely could start pumping at any time. But I mean, if you miss a 40x pump in a 2-day period, when that thing runs another 1000x, you've missed a 4000x opportunity. I'm sorry, a 40,000x opportunity, right? Just off missing that 40% that day. So what we're trying to do is provide knowledge, and we're also experimenting because it is experimental, but there are absolute certain proofs that the things that I'm saying, because this is how V2 liquidity pools are designed. And in this circumstance, whenever the VC money comes in, there's going to be casualties, but in this circumstance, the casualties get filthy and rich. So what we want to do is be able to continue to provide knowledge on a consistent basis and continue to prove that this game theory works, and be able to have the least amount of holders that we have involved, the better it is for all of us. Whether this community grows or not, both of our protocols here will hit billions of dollars. Just off what we've paired with now, today, they'll hit billions. And we don't have to do anything else, right? That's just with the pairings of pdai reaching parity. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's going to be in the billions, right? And then being able to understand and control these funds and then move things around, making different pairs with Hex, and you can make stablecoin pairs or utilize pdai or both. Because as these pump, we can literally mint even more liquidity into the protocol and then bring that back and then launching other tokens that are providing other values and have taxes on PulseChain that will feed the SKOL ecosystem, that will feed the PulseTrends ecosystem, and that will ultimately feed, it's like, I believe 150%. So if on those 5 bot contracts that I create, that I'll be launching my own arbitrage bots at and launching, high taxes, they range, right? They all have their own little ticker and they all hold a specific supply of each one. So the contract controls the supply, meaning it can't be taken out, right? Now, what they do is they hold each other's supply. So when the arbitrage bot triggers one, it triggers the next 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 one. And at that point, if we have $100,000 in volume, right, at 150%, at $100,000, I mean, we would get 10.5K in economic energy that we can provide throughout the ecosystem. That's without anyone buying these actual tokens. These tokens will operate this way through the arbitrage bots and just degenerates and other people buying into green candles. And we've tested this, so we know for a fact that these arbitrage bots will buy assets of taxes up to 5 in and 25 out. It was 30. And without any human interaction at all, it took, 4 days? I launched this token, provided liquidity live, didn't even know, and the token was already tradable. No one in my community touched it for 4 days. And I paired it completely wrong. I paired it 1-to-1 with everything. So I paired one token with one edai, right? I paired one token with one BFF. It was $800, $60, 0.0005 cents, 70 cents. After 4 days, the arbitrage bots alone pushed all those values to 0.004. So we're going to be utilizing a bunch of different mechanics, but at the end of the day, holding SKOL will get you involved with what we're doing. And if you want to get more involved, we will always be here to provide every single piece of knowledge that we possibly can. But we also really, really want you guys to go off and kind of look into what we're talking about, because what brings me joy is whenever SKOL or whenever Richard comes back and it's like, dude, this is what I found. Or when Moonboot comes back and it's like, holy shit. Or when Malphite or Sir Nick and they're like, dude, this is crazy. Like, I'm starting to understand what you're saying now because the bar of entry is getting lower. But the people that understand this now can take advantage of it. That's why SKOL has a huge Nemo pair. That's why us and SKOL are the only three protocols that have burnt liquidity across these three chains. And it's a huge influx. And as we grow, those liquidity pools will grow. You get the trading taxes on them all. They can be reutilized and revamped into the community. And then it's going to be a big arbitrage flow of value, free volume, right, for us because we controlled the supply. He controlled some of the supply. So anyone that doesn't want to get wrecked in this space needs to at least be paying attention to what we're doing because we're not going to give you all the answers. I will try to give you all the answers, but you're not going to understand it until you go off and provide liquidity for yourself.
And of course, we do have a new group for liquidity providers. Anyone that does provide liquidity for SKOL and wants to be in that group, that's the only requirement, is just to provide for one of the pools. I did so much liquidity-wise early on, but I'm so happy to see the whole community's been stepping up and all getting involved because that's really what it takes to get things to the next level. In the grand scheme of the vision of the web, it's still early.
SKOL is the proper name. Good one.
I love the name. It really is the perfect name. And, to my surprise, when this launched, nobody ever used that name or ticker. I mean, now there's a couple copycats out there, but it was literally the only one. And I was shocked because it's such a great name. There's been an actual there has not been a lot of Viking tokens in the market, which is really shocking because it seems like the most obvious meta.
Great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Other than Floki, there's really never been a really, really, really massive one.
Well, the great thing about having a meme with utility is what, the meme might attract them, and then the utility grabs other investors. So you cast a wider net by utilizing a meme as a name or a meme as as a meme, people might think you're joking. So you get the right type of investors in. And then when you make the real push, they're like, oh shit, these guys are serious. What we're building here is an absolute monster with SKOL. It's going to be the first ecosystem of its kind that has all these pairings of burnt liquidity across all these different chains. And what that causes pretty much is free arbitrage between the protocols, but it also brings value and volume into these ecosystems that people are going to be like, what? Like we have like a $10,000 one on Sol. Like without us buying the token or selling any of those tokens, Sol runs to $1,000. That's $100,000 liquidity pool. Like it's insane. And I can guarantee you right now, these protocols will reach billions. I mean, it might take a couple of years, but it's going to absolutely happen just because of the way that Richard and I have set up these liquidity pools and the way that, this understanding to utilize a very liquid asset, but make it illiquid because of what you pair it with. So those tokens that are illiquid pump us even harder, and we're still super liquid. It's an ingenious concept. And the fact that we made sure that our home bases were on different chains, right? So we've been messing with our logo and changing it around. So I like the white rabbit concept, follow the white rabbit, that type of thing is where we're leaning. And load itself is L0AD. Right. So it was I didn't really do this on purpose because layer 0 is where we're going. Layer 0 is going to be what causes gasless transactions. I'm already working with a dev that works for Ethane that's working on a brand new ERC20 standard wallet type thing. Now there's another place called Obvious that does it. Railway and Railgun do it. But what you'll be able to do eventually, what's happening right now is they're creating these bridges that allow you to seamlessly move across chains. And as you move and change your chain, you will then get a token. If your tokens are on every single chain, you will literally see all your tokens across every chain as you move across the chain. So us already setting this out and you holding tokens, SKOL over here, and over here, eventually it'll all be one big thing that you can collect and you can actually see as you move cross chain because they're creating these buffers. And why would they do that? So the reason is for that is so what's happening right now, say if you have 100 million DAI locked on this bridge, 100 million DAI locked on this bridge, and 100 million DAI locked on this bridge, right? What happens is you can't utilize that capital inside the protocol. The protocol owned liquidity cannot then be utilized properly. So what they're doing is they're creating these buffers with Wrap Bitcoin, Yeah, wrap Bitcoin, DAI, and DAI's doing it right now with Coinbase. Coinbase is they're putting up a $20 million DAI buffer connected with Coinbase. They're changing the USDC voting protocol today. Actually, the vote went in last night, and they're changing it to what is already existing on PulseChain. Why? Because it was tested on PulseChain first. Gnosis Chain actually launched the Deacon layer before Ethereum did. Like, they launched it in January, like months before. So, like, not only were there testing grounds because we're actual forks of Ethereum, but it also shows you that these guys are absolutely working hand in hand. Gnosis and Maker and Spark, they're partners, right? They're all partners. It's documented, it's known, they all invested in it. Maker also invested and sacrificed into PulseChain, right? Which is what atropa became, the new decentralized version of MakerDAO. That's what that is, a decentralized version of it. But we also now have RH, who owns the MakerDAO protocol on Pulse, which is huge, which is what Gnosis did as well. When Gnosis also forked the entire chain. They just did it differently. Gnosis was the consensus model because it's a proof of authority, and XDAI was the chain, the sister copy of Ethereum. And guess what? It's at parity. So this isn't like the PulseChain thing isn't even a test. It's a proven method. It's a proven method with VCs. You're talking about the Swiss Bank, Visa, MasterCard, to MakerDAO, to Consensus. They all invested into Gnosis Chain, right? Like, so it's a VC fund version of PulseChain. It's all at parity because they have the value there. But they use XDAI as their gas, a stable coin, right? Crazy. So there's another direct connection there. And their Omni bridge we forked on PulseChain. We forked the Omni bridge, right? And Richard's the one that found this out for me. And I was like, holy shit, another connection, right? The Wise token, which eventually became Gnosis Chain, copied what Hex did. So they took the Hex code, copied it, launched it, and now they have a $13 million market cap with a $250 million plus liquidity pool, the largest liquidity pool on the Ethereum network. So I feel like we're right on the pulse, what's going on in DeFi, how powerful SDAI is, how powerful Hex ecosystem is, PulseChain, and then us being able to essentially build off that value and do something great for a community for once, actually do the right things for the right reasons and prove not only this concept, prove that community is the utility and we don't need to be a big community to hit billions of dollars.
Pretty incredible.